Yosef forgot all his troubles and now he has good life. And Ephraim means being fruitful, because Yosef said, now I am so successful and fruitful. So Menashe signified the first half of Yosef's life, the difficult life, and Ephraim signified the second half of Yosef's life, the successful life. Now verse 53, the famine comes. The 7 years of abundance that came to pass in the land of Egypt ended, and the 7 years of famine began approaching. So first there was famine in all the lands around Egypt, but in all the land of Egypt there was bread. That was in the beginning. But then, when all the land of Egypt hungered, that eventually the famine spread to Egypt as well. The people cried out to Paro for bread. And that is because all their savings rotted. So Paro said to them, go to Yosef, whatever he tells you, you should do. And the commentators say that Yosef told them to do Brit Milah, to cut their foreskin in order for him to give them bread. And they said, why should we? That's not our custom. And they went to Paro, and Paro said, Yosef has higher powers, just listen whatever he tells you. When the famine spread over all the face of the earth, Yosef opened all the containers of food and sold provisions to Egypt. And the famine became severe in the land of Egypt. All the earth came to Egypt to Yosef to buy provisions, for the famine had become severe in all the earth. Egypt is now the only source of food in the entire region. And even in Egypt, it's only the governmental storage places that have food. Now we turn to page 233, chapter 42. Yaakov perceived that there were provisions in Egypt. So Yaakov said to his sons, verse 2, there are provisions in Egypt. Go down there and purchase for us from there, that we may live and not die. So Joseph's brothers, 10 of them, went down to buy grain in Egypt. But Binyamin, Joseph's brother, Yaakov did not send along with his brothers, because he was concerned that something bad might happen to him, because he realized that Rachel died, Yosef disappeared. Now Binyamin is the only one left from that line. Now, verse 6. Yosef, he was the viceroy over the land. He was the provider to all the people of the land. Yosef himself supervised the distribution of food and the sale of food. Yosef's brothers came and they bowed to him, faces to the ground. And the reason why Yosef was in charge of food, not only because he was a good manager and he knew that if he allows others to be in charge, there will be bribery, there will be dishonesty, and those that are in charge will take for themselves illegally. But in addition to being a good manager, Yosef also wanted to make sure that he will be present whenever the buyers come, so that he might be able to recognize his brothers when they come to buy food, because he knew that the entire region does not have food. So eventually, he reasoned, the brothers will come. So when brothers came and bowed down to him, verse 7, Yosef saw his brothers and he recognized them, but he acted like a stranger toward them and spoke to them harshly. And he said, "From where are you?" And they said, "From the land of Canaan. We came to buy food." They didn't recognize him. Now we go to page 235. Yosef remembered the dreams that he dreamt about them. So he said to them, "You are spies. To see the land's nakedness have you come." And the reason why Yosef is treating them like that is because he remembers that in the dream there were 11 bundles of wheat that bow down to his bundle, which means that all 11 brothers have to bow down to him. And that means that something is still not finished here. Only 10 brothers came and bowed down. He needs the 11th brother to come. Why? Yosef doesn't know. But Yosef has a prophecy that Binyamin must come together with the brothers and bow down. So Yosef says, I cannot reveal myself to them now. I have to first engineer Binyamin's descent into Egypt. Not only that, our sages say that Yosef wanted to test the brothers and to see whether or not they sold him because of their hatred for the children of Rachel, because of competition, and therefore they will mistreat Binyamin, or perhaps it was only because of his own mistakes, and therefore they have nothing against Binyamin, and if Yosef wouldn't make his mistake, the brothers would treat him well as well. So they answered, they tried to convince Yosef that they're not spies, but it didn't work because Yosef knew they were not spies. And the brothers thought that their convincing arguments will work, but they didn't, because Yosef didn't care. He wanted Binyamin to come. So, verse 14, Yosef said to them, after the whole discussion, it is just as I have declared to you, you're spies. By this shall you be tested. You will not leave here unless your youngest brother comes here. Send one of you to bring Binyamin. Verse 17, then he herded them into a ward for a 3-day period. He locked them up for 3 days to show them that he is serious. And on the 3rd day, he said, do this and live, because I fear God. And now he made the rules more soft. He said, verse 19, if you're truthful people, let one of your brothers be imprisoned in your place of confinement while you go and bring provisions for the hunger of your household, and bring your younger brother. So instead of keeping all of them as hostages and letting only one go, he is keeping only one of them as hostage, and all of them can go home. And they did so. Now on page 237, they then said to one another, as they're standing in front of Yosef, they start talking among themselves, and they say, indeed, we are guilty concerning our brothers, inasmuch as we saw his heartfelt anguish when he pleaded with us, and we paid no heed. That is why this anguish has come upon us. Now we hear some more details about the sale of Yosef. They didn't just grab him and threw him in a pit in a second. There was a whole conversation. And the court case. Our sages say that the brothers set up a court and they judged Yosef. And they decreed that he is guilty and that he must be removed from the family. First by death, and then they agreed to just throw him into a pit, and then they agreed to just sell him. And while this was happening, Yosef was pleading with them and trying to convince them that he is not bad, that he doesn't have any evil intentions. And they didn't listen. So now the tables turn. And now the brothers are trying to convince Yosef that they're innocent. And now Yosef is not listening. Now, verse 22. Reuben spoke up to them, saying, didn't I speak to you, saying, do not sin against the boy? But you didn't listen. Reuben wanted to save him, but brothers didn't want to listen. So Reuben compromised and said, at least let's not kill him ourselves, let's throw him into the pit. And verse 23. Now they did not know that Joseph understood, because all along an interpreter was between them. And Joseph turned away from them and wept. He returned to them and spoke to them. He didn't want them to see that he's crying, because then they would become suspicious, so he turned away. And then he took Shimon from them and imprisoned him before their eyes. And that is because Shimon and Levi were the two most responsible for the sale of Joseph. Other brothers would be willing to forgive and give Joseph another chance, but Shimon and Levi were not. So he separated them. He took Shimon away from Levi, that they shouldn't do trouble. Verse 25. Joseph commanded that they fill their vessels with grain, and to return their money, each one's to his sack, secretly. The servants put the money of each brother inside his full sack. Verse 26. Then they loaded their purchase onto their donkeys and departed from there. When one of them opened his sack at an inn, he saw that there's money there, and they got scared. Their hearts sank, and they turned trembling one to another, saying, "What is this that God has done to us?" They realized that money inside your bag is not a happy occasion, because it's not supposed to be there. It means that in Egypt they're going to do calculation, and they will realize that money is missing, and they will assume that the brothers stole it. Verse 29. They came to Yaakov their father in the land of Canaan, and they told him of all that had happened to them. Page 239. Verse 33. Then the man, the Lord of the land, said to us, "By this I will ascertain whether you are truthful people. One of your brothers leave with me, and what you need for the hunger of your households, take and go, and bring your youngest brother to me. I will restore your brother to you, and you will be free to circulate about the land." They told Yaakov everything that happened, and that they were being suspected of being spies. And as they were emptying their sacks, behold, not only one, but every man's bundle of money was in his sack. When they and their father saw their bundles of money, they were terrified. Here you have this empire next to you, powerful empire, plus they are the only ones that have food, plus our brother is imprisoned there. If they find out that we have their money, they will accuse us not only of being spies, but also of robbery, of invasion, and taking away their property. Potentially, it's life-threatening for the entire family of Yaakov. So they're terrified. Verse 36. Their father Yaakov said to them, "I am the one whom you bereaved. You caused me to lose all my children. Joseph is gone, Shimon is gone, and now you want to take away Binyamin? Upon me has it all fallen." Then Reuben offers to protect Binyamin. Reuben told his father, saying, "I will allow you to kill 2 of my sons if I will not bring Binyamin back. Put him in my care, and I will return him to you." But Yaakov said, "Reuben, what are you saying? I should give you Binyamin, and then he's not going to come back, and then I should kill 2 of your sons, my grandchildren? Doesn't make sense." So Yaakov didn't listen to him. But he said, "My son shall not go down with you." Now chapter 43. There's no more food. The famine was severe in the land. When they had finished eating the provisions which they had brought from Egypt, the father said to them, "Go back and buy some more food." He's hoping that he doesn't have to send Binyamin. But Yehudah told him, The man, Yosef, told us, do not see my face unless your brother is with you. We're on page 241. If you, Yaakov, will send Binyamin with us, we will go and buy food. But if not, we can't go. He's not going to let. Then Yisrael said, and he's trying, grabbing on straw. Why did you tell the man that you had another brother? And the brother said, what can we do? He was asking us questions. We didn't suspect that he has anything against us. Now, verse 8. Judah said to Yisrael his father, send the boy with me. Verse 9. I will personally guarantee him. If I do not bring him back to you and stand him before you, then I will have sinned to you for all time. Verse 11. Israel their father said to them, if it must be so, then do this. Just like he did with Esav. Before meeting him, he sent him gifts. Yaakov said, I'm going to do the same with this man, the viceroy. Take of the land's glory, the best of the fruits of the land of Israel, in your baggage, and bring it down to the man as a tribute. A bit of balsam, a bit of honey, wax, lotus, pistachios, and almonds. And take double amount of money. Maybe the grain went up in price, and also you have to return the original money. Verse 13. Take your brother and arise, return to the man, and may God grant you mercy before the man, that he may release to you your other brother, meaning Shimon, as well as Binyamin. Page 243. The brothers go back. Verse 16. Yosef saw Binyamin with them. So he said to the one in charge of his house, bring the man into the house. Before speaking to them, he just saw Binyamin from far away. He didn't appear to them. He just sent his servant to bring them straight to Yosef's house. Have meat slaughtered and prepare it, for with me will these men dine at noon. It's a real roller coaster. They come to Egypt to buy food. Then they're accused of being spies, sent to prison. Now they come back, and Yosef again treats them as royalty with meat feast. And then again he will accuse them of theft and take Binyamin as a slave. Yosef is creating this roller coaster in order to confuse the brothers and to catch them off guard and to see will they protect Binyamin or not. Verse 18. The men became frightened when they were brought to Yosef's house, and they said, because of the money replaced in our sacks originally, are we being brought so that a charge can be fabricated against us, that it crash down on us, and that we be taken as slaves along with our donkeys? They're really scared. No one else is being treated like that. Everyone just comes, gives the money, takes the grain, and leaves. Why are we being treated like this? Verse 19. They approached the man who was in charge of Yosef's house and spoke to him at the entrance of the house. And they said, if you please, my lord. And they tell him the entire story, how they came and how they were accused and how they're innocent. Verse 23. He replied, peace with you, fear not. Your God and the God of your father has put a hidden treasure in your sack. Don't think that we put the money in there, even though they did, but he is tricking them. He says, it was God. Don't worry, we have nothing against you. Your payment has reached me. And he brought Shimon out to them. They prepared the gift for Yosef. Now we turn to page 245. When Yosef came to the house, they brought the gift that was in their hands to him, to the house, and they prostrated themselves to him, toward the ground. So now the dream of Yosef is fulfilled. 11 brothers are bowing down to them. He asked them, "Is your aged father of whom you spoke at peace? Is he still alive?" And they replied, "Your servant our father is at peace. He still lives." And they again bowed down. Then Yosef rushed, because his compassion for his brother had been stirred, and he wanted to weep. So he went into the room and wept there. He washed his face and went out. We see that Yosef cries again and again and again. Yosef cried throughout last Torah portion and this Torah portion and next Torah portion multiple times. We see that Yosef is very sensitive. Verse 29. We read verse 29. He blesses Binyamin. "God be gracious to you, my son." He went into a room and wept there. He washed his face and went out, fortified himself and said, "Serve food." They served him separately and them separately, and the Egyptians who ate with him separately. And now the Torah tells us why everyone eats separately in Egypt. And that is because Egyptians could not bear to eat food with the Hebrews. Why? Because the Jewish people eat meat, and Egyptians didn't eat meat. Egyptians were vegetarians according to some opinions, or at least they didn't eat sheep and cows just like the Jews. And surprisingly, Yosef was allowed to do that. And the brothers didn't notice it. Even though Yosef was eating meat, and they were eating meat, and the Egyptians were not, they didn't pay attention. That must be that Yosef is not Egyptian. Now we turn to page 247. The final test. Binyamin is accused of thievery. Yosef instructed the one in charge of his house to fill their sacks with grain. And verse 2, in addition to putting their money again secretly, "My goblet, the silver goblet, the cup of silver, place in the mouth of the youngest one's sack." And that's what they did. The day arrived and the men were sent off. They had left the city, had not gone far, when Yosef said to the one in charge of his house, "Get up, chase after the men. When you overtake them, tell them, why did you repay evil for good? Why did you steal the cup that my master drinks from?" Verse 6, the servant overtook them and accused them of stealing. Verse 7, and they said to him, "Why does my Lord say such things? It would be sacrilegious for your servants to do such a thing." Verse 9, "Anyone among your servants with whom the goblet is found shall die," which means we will treat him harshly and we will put him to death for theft. "And we are willing to become slaves to my Lord." But Menashe says, or Menashe is the one that Yosef sent, his own son he sent. And he said, "The one with whom it is found shall be my slave, but the rest of you will be innocent. You can go home, I don't need you. Only the thief will be taken as a slave." Hurriedly each one lowered his sack to the ground, and each one opened his sack. The servant searched. He began with the oldest and ended with the youngest, on purpose that they shouldn't suspect. He didn't start with Binyamin right away, he started from the other end. And the goblet was found in Binyamin's sack. They tore their garments. Each one reloaded his donkey, and they returned to the city. When Yehudah arrived with his brothers to Joseph's home, Joseph was still there. They bowed down to him, and Joseph said to them, "What is this deed that you have done? Do you not realize that a man like me practices divination? I can find out secret things. You thought you can get away from me?" Joseph is, of course, bluffing, trying to convince them that he has high powers, to scare them. So Yehudah said, "What can we say to my Lord? How can we speak? And how can we justify ourselves? God has uncovered the sin of your servants. Here we are. We are ready to be slaves to my Lord, both we and the one in whose hand the goblet was found." Which is very strange. If this happens, all the sons of Yaakov will disappear. But that's the honesty that the Jewish people have. If they recognize that they did something wrong, they're willing to pay for it. But Joseph replied, "It would be sacrilegious. It would be wrong for me to do this. The man in whose possession the goblet was found, only he shall be my slave. And as for you, go up in peace to your father." On a most interesting place, the Parsha ends, and next week, B'ezrat Hashem, we will learn about how the brothers came out of this difficulty, how the brothers passed the test and they defended Binyamin by risking their life. Yehudah kept his promise to Yaakov to bring Binyamin back, and he personally argued and was ready to fight with Yosef to protect Binyamin. Thank you for listening. Happy Hanukkah. Shabbat Shalom.